Right, well, thank you for joining us on this session. I'm Charlotte Reed, I'm correspondent for CNBC. So we're going to talk about decarbonizing cities. So cities today account for almost 75% of global carbon dioxide emissions. And more people live in cities. It's 55% of world population today. It's going to be 70% in 2070. So you see the scale of the issue we face and what decarbonizing urban transport and infrastructure is key to answer this challenge and avoid disastrous long-term consequences. So I have two perfect actors to discuss this. We have Hiba Farès, who's chair of RATP Dev. RATP Dev operates and maintains urban and intercity transportation systems in 15 countries on 5 continents, including the metro in Cairo, the trams in Washington, D.C., buses in London, or regional trains in South Africa. You have some 1.5 billion passengers every year that transit through your systems. And we also have Javier Varela, who's Deputy CEO and COO of Volvo Cars. Volvo Cars sold 615,000 vehicles just last year. 55% of them were pure electric or plug-in hybrid. And you plan to sell only electric cars from 2030, and you will be a climate-neutral company by 2040. Thanks so much, both of you, for joining us. Well, Hiba, I'm going to start with you, and by quoting you, actually. You say, how can quality of life and experience of living in a city be measured? First and foremost, by a city's services, and transportation systems are the heart and soul of a city. So tell us more about that.
Was just during lunch, I met a woman who lives in Saudi Arabia, in Riyadh, and she was telling me that people were suffocating because of congestion and they don't want to live there anymore. They don't know how to move. So this is an illustration of the importance of public transport. Riyadh is investing to have a big metro network, 6 lines opening anytime next year. So they're investing heavily, but meantime, people aren't able to move freely. And this is why public transport is, for me, the backbone, is essential for every city, especially big crowded cities. And we know that the future is to have bigger and bigger cities. And what usually, when we talk about decarbonization, and Javier here will talk about it, we always talk about switching from thermal cars to electrical cars. So usually you have a lot of government subventions, etc., to help people switching to electric cars, which is good, but which won't be enough for me to change radically the pollution and congestion in the city, because public transport, you compare it to whatever you want, even to electric cars, especially if you have one driver per car, it is less pollution, less congestion, easy and more affordability for everybody, especially. So when we compare it, for example, an electric bus, not to talk about metro, with an electric car, the difference is you cut by half the carbon dioxide emission. And if you compare a metro line to an electric car with only one driver, you would cut it by 30. So it's huge how investing in public transport can not only shape the city, but really allow cities to be more breathable, more livable, more enjoyable for everybody. So this is why I really think that what my company does and this mobility sector is really essential, and it is not an added value, it's a must. And a lot of cities nowadays really are aware of this. So things are happening very fast in Australia, in the Gulf, in Europe, because in Paris area we're adding 3 brand new metro lines all over Paris. So you'll have a big network. It's doubling its size. So big cities are aware, are investing, but it's not the case everywhere. We know that United States is more switching to electric car than switching to public transport. So we still have a lot of convincing to do in some areas of the world in order for decision makers, politicians, etc., to take this big risk, because usually when you want you should invest heavily in order to have efficient public transport systems, and by doing though you'll need time. You'll need time to build new networks, etc. And usually it's not something politicians like to have, because they want a quick and very short-term answers. So these are kind of decisions we need to push every decision maker to take.
And I guess it's a very different challenge to transform a public transport in a city that was designed basically being car first, to design a transport system from scratch in maybe a developing city. I guess it's two very different issues for you.
Yeah, you're right. We have, in the network where we operate, we have the two cases. For example, I was telling you about Riyadh or Doha in Qatar, etc. They didn't have any public transport. It was city designed for car. It's Riyadh. It's like any American city. Yeah, it's designed really on the same model, and with some design by very good engineers who are building very fast this metro network. Whereas when you have an old network, you should start by redesigning it, modernizing it, switching from metros, for example, with drivers to driverless metros, reinvesting, etc. And this is very difficult. This is why cities like New York, Chicago, etc. Are having more difficulties in remodernizing, reshifting their network if you compare it from city that will start from scratch.
What's interesting, what I've read as well, is that, of course, an efficient public transport is not only about cleaner cities, it's also a factor of access to economic opportunities and social cohesion to a certain extent. So there's a lot at stake beyond, of course, decarbonizing overall.
Exactly. It's the only means of transportation that should be affordable for everybody. Should be accessible, wheelchair, etc. All cases, and should be affordable. It is affordable usually. So if I take the example of Paris, when we design a new network that will link a suburb to the city center or a suburb to a suburb, you will have access to jobs that you won't have, because a lot of people can't afford investing in cars and etc. So you would open access to education, you would open access to culture, you would open access to work, and it changes immensely what people are living, and it is really something we see every year when we add a new metro station or we open a new line, etc. It changes radically the way people live and the way they spend their time, because if you spend 1.5 hours to go from one place to another in the morning, and then with the arrival of a new tramway or metro or whatever, you're going to spend only 15 or 20 minutes, you change drastically the way you organize your life, your personal, your professional life, and access to all kind of different opportunities.
Javier, you're the other key player in this equation of trying to decarbonize cities. Of course, car makers, there's a shift to EVs. You guys are working very hard to meet some very ambitious targets. But one of the keys, I guess, for electric cars is to make them more affordable. The only way to break into the mass market is to make them cheaper. But they are computer on wheels. They are expensive to make. Software making is crucial and very important. So how do you do that? How do you make EVs mass market while protecting your margins, of course?
Well, at Volvo Cars, I will use this example. We have taken this bold direction to get all our cars fully electric by 2030, as you well insisted in the introduction. But to get to there, 3-4 years ago, we have taken the decision to carve out from our business all the internal combustion engine development and production. So all of our engineers and manufacturing sites that were dedicated to this kind of technology have been carved out, are now in an external company that is behaving with us as a supplier. So we have really focused all of our teams in electrification, in designing a fantastic product, a fantastic electric product. To produce that product, you need as well to transform your supply chain. There's a huge transformation in the supply chain, and part of the economies that you need to get is based on the transformation of your supply chain. Is your plants, how you adapt your plants to produce only electric vehicles, and it's as well how you adapt your suppliers and what is your make or buy strategy. We have increased our vertical integration of some key components, core components of the electrical vehicle. For example, batteries. We started with the packs, the battery pack, but now we are going into the cell. We have a joint venture with another partner to design and produce our own cells. We will generate cost reductions by these kind of activities. We are integrating the electric drive design and production. We started designing it ourselves and having a build-to-print approach, but now is going towards a no manufacturing. We have the same approach with our power electronics. And what's more important with software, you were referring to the car as a computer on wheels, and we are integrating very much an important number of the software content of the car and the technology that is behind. The car needs to be connected. And you were asking, okay, how we can improve the situation in the cities. I do think that there will be a green harmony between public transportation and private transportation or personal cars, and connectivity is a crucial element. Vehicle to everything, as we said. You can get enormous opportunities of optimizing by doing so. So we are taking control of our supply chain. We are increasing our level of vertical integration for core areas. And we are focusing really on only designing electric cars.
And so all this helps you make those EVs more affordable, because it's always seen as the key challenge now is they are expensive, these cars. So we see a lot of car makers trying to reach closer to 20,000 euros for an entry point, but it's hard. They're still very expensive. So again, how do you make EVs into the mass market and affordable?
We, the scale that you get over time will help you, obviously. This focus on design, really in smart solutions in designing the cars. We have launched recently our EX30. Is as safe as any other Volvo. Safety is in our DNA, but it's a more affordable car. We have looked into smart process and product design solutions. I can give an example. So we have got rid of the speakers in the doors, and instead they have a sound bar in the front. So it's easy to assemble. That car is cheaper to assemble, while keeping the sound level at the same level, even improving it. We have taken a sustainability angle as well. We are reusing denim or flax for the deco panels. So I always want to refer to Jim Collins and this build to last, this tyranny of the or against the genius of the and. So we need to start thinking that it's not A or B, it's A and B. And if you really have this determination and this clarity of thinking in your whole organization, and you don't accept this A or B, it's A and B, you will start finding the right directions to get both things. So that sustainability piece and a car that is affordable. Again, in the case of Volvo cars, of course, we are covering, and you have seen it with our last launches and presentations of new cars, we are covering an important range in the premium sector, covering from the top notch and people mover car to the smaller one that we have just announced recently, and that is start the production right now. That one is absolutely affordable, but the key was this thinking, first principles, thinking the way how you assemble the car, improving your processes, and then really focusing. That's the car we wanted to do.
So we just heard you working to transform your whole industrial tool to adjust to some very ambitious targets that have been set by some policymakers. But are they doing their part now? Like, is the infrastructure ready? I'm talking for you for chargers or for public transport in general. Do you see from policymakers and governments enough action to actually, so you can fully deliver as well?
I think there's more to do, obviously, and in terms of access to free fossil energy. I would start by that one, and the second one is the electrification infrastructure. I mean, charging stations across the country. But it's important to get access to fossil-free energy as well. And you were mentioning, referring to COP28, and this time COP28 takes place against the backdrop of the recently published UN Global Climate Stocktake. And we are seeing that we are far off to the Paris Agreement's 1.5 degrees. So there's obviously much more to do. And we need to have corrective actions and additional energy and efforts to get to that target. And that target goes, in the case of private cars or personal cars, through electrification.
Are you more optimistic or pessimistic about that COP28? Because there's been 27 of those before. It has been the hottest year on record. How you are yourself traveling to the meeting, how optimistic or pessimistic are you?
I'm a grounded optimistic, so I'm expecting that we have a lot of proofs that we are not going in the right direction, so I'm expecting action.
How about you, Hiba, when we're talking about policymakers and investments, and obviously there's less and less public money, interest rates are rising, money is short, you two are in a way almost competing for some of the same funds. How you see the action from policymakers?
Yeah, you're right. Public money is becoming very difficult to get because obviously it is more expensive to get, and for private companies too. When you take a loan, it's costing you a lot if you compare to 1 or 2 years ago, which was really not expensive. What we are trying to develop, some countries are trying to develop, is bringing private funds into the equation. If you take superchargers, I know that in France, many companies like Total are investing heavily in order to have vehicle chargers in their stations, so it could be complementary to the public funding by a city, etc., etc. And concerning public transport, it's the same thing. You would have private investment that will come and help having these big investments. It's the case, for example, in Australia, where they do a lot of PPP projects, and this is how they are building all their brand new networks. In Europe, it's not the case. Usually, we are still very addicted to public money. So if you look at France, for example, you have a lot of announcement of public money going to rail industry in France with the RER Metropolitan in all the regions, etc., etc. For the time being, these are announcements. I don't know which money will be given to these projects, but at least you have the awareness, and you have politicians that know that they need to find money somewhere in order to put it into a mobility sector. But maybe we'll bring private funds in France and Europe too. I don't know. But in Australia, in Canada, etc., it's generally the case, and it helps to have private investors bringing their money to.
And we saw in the US the Inflation Reduction Act to help finance some of that green transition. Europe is putting its answer to the IRA together to boost the green transition, help reindustrialization as well to a certain extent. But it looks like it's, how good of a response is that? Some say it's triggering a green trade war rather than a green trade deal to a certain extent. So how useful are these actions, and how do you see Europe's response really to the IRA?
In our case, we are not advocating for big subventions. I think that the industry needs to stand on their own foot and be competitive by improving performance. With this said, there's always, when there's a big transition, there's always a help that is needed to scale the new technology. So to develop and scale the new technology, a help is needed. And IRA is supporting that push for scaling. And now we have the Net Zero Industry Act in Europe to support or bring in more manufacturing of green technologies here. It's helpful to give that push. In our case, we are not advocating for a long-term support of that kind.
As incentives useful, I think I heard one of your competitors saying we don't need money for incentives for people to buy electric cars. We need that money to be put into infrastructure and invest in that infrastructure. Is that something that you agree with?
I prefer more putting efforts in infrastructure, accessing fossil-free energy. Those are really the key elements where we need to put the efforts.
Montpellier in December is going to have public transport entirely free. No provocation here, Javier, but is that your dream scenario? Should public transport be completely free?
I don't think that free has a lot of value. And something is free, I don't know what value you would feel. So we'll see. You have a lot of different cities trying in Spain, in France, or the flat rates in Germany, where you can travel all over So a lot of experiments are done in order to push people to model switch, to leave their thermal cars, or not Volvo cars, and to start just push them towards public transport. So these ideas should be tested, but we were talking about investment and about public money. Switching to free public transport, meaning having less resources in order to invest. So this is the idea. You should keep investing and improving the offer. And then you should help people who can't afford paying the full rate, or students, or whatever. So public transport should be affordable to everybody. But to be free for people who can afford paying the subscription, it is only taking money from the investment part. So this is why I'm not very comfortable with the idea on theory, but then when some cities test it, they say, okay, we have much more people coming, taking public transport. I don't know if it's new people coming and taking public transport, or people switching from walking to taking public transport, because for a few stations you would walk, and if it's free you'll take your bus because it is arriving, or you would take more because it's costing. But are we really switching from thermal fossil energy to public transport? It's still to be proven. And then the sustainability, the financial sustainability on the long term, And you were saying, Javier, in any case, you're not competing. You say you're complementary in many ways in decarbonizing cities.
Yeah, I don't think so. As I said, there's a harmony that will be found with both means of transportation. In our case, we see the car as electric, fully electric, obviously, autonomous and connected. So it's important to have this capability to connect to everything, and we are preparing and developing technology to get to there. I can mention an example. You were referring to Montpellier. Stockholm, as of 2025, will ban thermal cars inside the city, so you cannot enter with a thermal car. Those are bold decisions that can promote this sustainability in mobility.
There's no concepts like the 15-minute cities. People should be able to access work, shops, entertainment within a radius of 15 minutes from their home. Is that a realistic approach or even a desirable one at all?
I think it's a long-term approach. I don't think we can fix when cities are designed in a certain way, when you have retail centers in the city center and then people living, it can be changed so quickly. It can be achieved by having new means of transportation to get from one point to another more efficiently. But it wasn't the idea of the 15-minute city in the beginning. Now we are talking about reaching, for example, in Paris region. Today I was talking with the president of the region, and she told me I would dream of 20 minutes public transport or car, etc., connecting for everything you need in the whole region. I think it will take time, and I'd rather, when I see what is happening in many cities, I really would push the concept I heard in the city of Lyon, which is the city at a child's height, meaning if a child can walk safely, breathe, play, run, etc. in a city, then we achieve something. It's for me more important than the 15 minutes doing everything and having a Zara shop in 20 minutes time. I don't think it's crucial. I think what is essential is to have a peaceful spaces in the city, and if a child could be really free and in an urban space, then we would have achieved something. And all what we are doing is somehow opposite to this.
For the final 2 minutes of our chat, what does the transport in the city in 2050 looks like?
It's very challenging, and seeing the speed of transformation of the technology, when you look 10 years behind what was the mobile communication, everything can be expected. So difficult to challenge, and maybe I leave Hiba her dream, but I already said that there are three important elements that we need to consider: cars, electrified and autonomous, connected with this integrated system connecting to everything. And the third one is the cars being part of the energy ecosystem. We are preparing for that as well. Our cars are bidirectional for charging. You can feed the electricity from your car to your home and vice versa. So if you connect, imagine all the fleet of cars that are out in the street, or will be out in the street by then, fully electric, you can very well help the grid to stabilize, to reduce peaks, and to have a more harmonized energy production based on renewables energy. So we are preparing for that, and we'll be ready.
Hiba?
Much more. For me, the dream would be have the backbone is mass transit. The big flows would go with mass transit, but it's not enough. So you need to have the first and last mile kilometer covered. Electric cars are an option. Electric buses are an option too. In France, for example, only 5% of buses are electric if you remove Paris. So we still have a lot to do in order to switch from fossil to electric, and then have all the bikes, walking, etc., all the means of covering the first and a half miles, connecting with hubs to this backbone, which should be mass transit, with a seamless experience for the user, meaning switching from car, parking, and train in a very smooth way with a digital app, the same payment, etc., etc. It should be easy to switch from one mode to another in order to optimize time, to optimize money, and to have less carbon emission generated by each mobility. So I think we still have a lot to do, but everyone is doing what should be done, and hopefully by then we'll have some political will and big investments in order to achieve it.
Oh, good way to finish on a positive note. Thank you so much, Hiba, Farès, and Javier, Varela.
Thank you. Thank you.